I made $92,944 in the last 137 days with branded dropshipping, and of that, $41,000 was net profit. That is a 45% net profit margin when most dropshippers are lucky to get 10% from meta ads. Not bad for a brand new dropshipping store that didn't exist 4.5 months ago. And I'll show you my actual profit and loss in just a moment. For those of you that are new here, my name's Theo Clarke, and I've been documenting my journey of building this branded dropshipping store from scratch, taking it from zero to over $10,000 in sales in just 32 days. And now I'm documenting my journey of scaling it to $100,000 per month and beyond. In this video, I'll be sharing with you my actual profit and loss, my team structure, I'll give you a quick store update, and then I will reveal to you my strategy that I'm going to be implementing this Q4 to scale to $100,000 per month and beyond. So let's get into it. Let me start by showing you my actual profit and loss. Let me just pull up Shopify real quick just to show you. So you can see from May 2nd to September 16th, which is 137 days, we've done $92,944 in sales, and that's from just 244 orders. So as you can see, what we're doing here is branded high ticket dropshipping. My AOV on this store is about $400. Let me just hit refresh so you can see that these numbers are legit. There we go. And as you can see, we've been scaling pretty consistently month on month. We went from 8K to 15K to 20K to 32K. And now month to date, we're about halfway through September. And so far we've done about $18,000. But let me show you what this looks like inside of my actual profit and loss. So let me explain what we're looking at here. You can see that the data is broken down by month. And within each of these tabs, I actually have my profit and loss broken down by each day of each month. But what I'm showing you here is the condensed version. So you can see in May, total sales align with what we were seeing there on Shopify. We did 8K, June 15K, July 18K. You can see in this column here, ad spend. This is strictly Google advertising spend. Google is the only channel that I'm using right now to push traffic to my website. And then of course you can see here we have our cost of goods. So that is our product cost and our shipping cost. So truth be told, when we're looking at profit here as a monetary figure and also as a percentage, this doesn't include my Shopify subscription, the apps that I'm using, of which are minimal, and also my virtual assistant cost. I just have one VA who's working a few hours a day and doing some customer support. So you maybe want to take off a couple of $100 each month from this profit to accurately reflect true net profit. But by taking total sales and deducting the advertising spend and the cost of goods, which are of course the biggest expenses, we get a pretty accurate picture here of what is going on. So you can see in May from 8K in sales, we actually had $4,000 in profit, which was a 54% net profit margin. And the ROAS, which is the advertising spend versus the total sales, was 5.17. Now, as I mentioned, all of this was achieved using Google Ads alone. I actually broke down my strategy in a previous video. It formed part of my 0 to 10K challenge. So if you want to learn more about the strategy that I'm implementing, then I recommend checking out that video. But as you can see, as each month progresses, naturally the ad spend has been increasing as I'm slowly scaling up, and each month ad spend has also increased. So we can see in June I spent 2.7K, generated 15K in sales, 7.2K in profit, 50% net profit margin, 5x ROAS. In July, we spent 5K on ads, 18K in sales, 6.8K in profit, 36% net profit margin, and 3.6x ROAS. Now, profit was actually slightly lower this month. You can see the ROAS was also a little lower as well. We scaled up the ad spend quite considerably, doubled it from 2.7 to 5.1. However, we didn't generate that much more in the back end in terms of total sales versus spending almost half that amount in June. So that additional ad spend there was of course deducted from the total profit, meaning in July we actually generated more revenue but less profit, you can see. So this is something that I actually want to touch on, guys. You know, when you're looking at people's revenue screenshots that they share on Instagram and on YouTube, the question you need to be asking is how much of that is actually profit? Because you'll often see guys sharing 50, 100, 200, whatever K per month revenue screenshots, but if they're advertising on Meta and they're selling low ticket, low quality products, it's likely that they have a very high cost per acquisition versus the amount of revenue that they're actually bringing in, which means they don't have that much profit margin. A lot of the time people are running meta ads and they're happy with like a 2x ROAS. Keep in mind their cost of goods is maybe like a 1.5x. So they're working on really tiny profit margins. Like, it's not uncommon for all these guys that you see online to be earning between a 10 to 15% net profit margin. So just keep that in mind, because a lot of people get caught up in chasing revenue. Revenue is just a vanity metric. What we're doing here and what we're really trying to do is make money, right? So that's why I'm always very vigilant on what my actual profit is. And trust me, this has come from a guy who's been in ecom for 5 years, and I have tried dropshipping lower price point products, and I constantly feel like I'm chasing my tail, because you sell low price point products, you have huge high volume of orders, which means customer support, chargebacks, dissatisfaction. I've always seen the greatest success when I sell high ticket products and use specifically Google ads, and you can see this reflected in my profit margin. Now, why did this actually happen? I'm going to show you with an illustration in just a moment, okay? You can see I doubled my ad spend, revenue came up, but actually total profit was less than the month prior. And that's the other thing when it comes to scaling, right? Most people are hiding behind revenue screenshots, and you're led to believe that the best way to scale is by always just increasing ad spend. But actually you can see I almost doubled ad spend here. And as a result of that, I did get a bit more revenue, but actually my total profit was less than the month prior. So that's the thing. It's not always about revenue. It's a vanity metric. You want to just focus on actual profit. And let me illustrate this to you now, just so you better understand what I'm saying. See, most people think that ad spend and revenue are linear. They think as they increase their ad spend, they'll also see an increase in their revenue, okay? But as you saw in my own profit and loss, that when I doubled my ad spend, actually my revenue did not double. And that's because this input of ad spend and this output of revenue is not linear, okay? It does not go up in a perfect diagonal. Instead, what happens is your ad spend and your ROAS work a little bit more like a sliding scale. So what do I mean by this? Well, let's look at a scale, okay? And what tends to happen is they operate within a range. As you increase your ad spend, let's assume that the middle of this scale is balance between your ad spend and your revenue, as if we were working along this perfect linear scale. That would be balance, okay? But what actually happens is as you increase, let's say that this side is ad spend, once you increase your ad spend, often what happens is your revenue output becomes unbalanced, okay? You start to see or uncover inefficiencies, which means you go through a phase where you're spending more than what you're generating here in revenue. But as you increase your ad spend, you gain more data. Now, the reason that that's important, especially with something like Google Ads or even Meta as well, is as you acquire that data, you can then leverage it, okay? They always say, or what I always say, is when you're launching a new business and you're just setting up new ad campaigns, you're really paying to acquire data. Once you have enough data that you can actually use to make an informed decision, you can then make the campaigns more efficient. So if you think back to my profit and loss, which I'll run through with you again in just a moment, when we went from June to July, I believe it was, I increased my ad spend, okay? Which meant that my output of revenue was disproportionate to how much I was spending. But I acquired much more data during that period, and that then allowed me in the following month to optimize and bring the scale back towards equilibrium here. And I'll show how that's reflected in my profit and loss in just a moment. But what I'm trying to illustrate here is people think that ad spend up equals revenue up, but it doesn't. What you'll typically see is as you increase ad spend, you'll discover new inefficiencies, which will cause the revenue to come down slightly. Therefore, your ROAS also comes down, your return on advertising spend. But with that new data, you can then fix those inefficiencies, which means that your ROAS then comes back up, and therefore your ad spend versus revenue becomes more balanced. And let me show you this in my actual profit and loss. So as you can see here in July, this was when my ad spend was disproportionate to the amount of revenue generated. Okay, my ROAS actually came down from 5.2 to 3.6, and my total profit came down from 50% down to 36. Now, 30% net profit, still fantastic, okay? 6.8k in profit. However, if you look at August, you can see this is where I really took my learnings from July and applied them and brought my total profit up whilst also increasing total revenue further, almost doubling my total profit. You can see here, ad spend went from 5k to 7.2k. Total sales off of the back of that was $33,000, of which $15,500 was profit. That's a 46% net profit margin and a 4.6x return on advertising spend. Like, hopefully I don't need to stress to you guys how unusual this is, like at least in the terms of the typical dropshipping world. Like I say, most people are getting a 10-15% net. We're out here doing high ticket branded dropshipping, charging a premium price point for products, positioning ourselves as an authority within a niche, and you can see the outcome of that being reflected in our total profit. The margins here are huge. That's a perfect example of paying to acquire data during July and then doubling down on it in August by simply optimizing the data within the Google advertising campaigns. So by now you can start to see that my focus is very much on profit, and yours should be too. Forget about chasing those revenue screenshots and vanity metrics. You can always find the truth within the numbers, and especially within the profit margins. Now, as I mentioned, my goal with this business is to take it to $100,000 per month, and I expect I will achieve that in Q4. That's my goal anyway, which I think is extremely feasible, right? You can see here in September, month to date, we've spent 5K, generated $18,000 in sales at a 40% net profit margin. I'm confident that we'll finish this month somewhere between $40,000 to $50,000 in revenue. I was actually inside the Google ad account this morning, increasing some campaign budgets and scaling into the second half of this month. So now that we've been through my profit and loss, let me share with you my team structure, which is very different to what you'd typically see on a meta dropshipping store. Now, in truth, it's actually very simple. You have me here, the business owner, and then we have this and this. We have my VA and we have my private agent, aka 007. If you've seen James Bond, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, I'll explain more about what a private agent is in a moment and also what a VA is. But this is one of the things I love about Google Ads dropshipping, right? You don't have any creatives like on Meta. If you've ever tried advertising on Meta, you'll know that you need to test quite vigorously different products and different creatives. So that's images and videos, and Meta is an auction, right? Which means you're competing against other people within the same niche for the same audience. So you'll build regardless of whether or not your ad even converts, right? Which is very different to the way in which Google works. First of all, on Google, you don't have any image or video based creatives. Well, you can do, okay? There are channels where you can leverage it, but the majority of your sales come from the search and shopping networks, which are primarily just text-based networks, okay? You have search ads and you have shopping ads. Shopping ads, if you've ever seen them on Google, it's where you can just see an image of a product, the product title, and the price point. Now, the other benefit of Google is you only get charged when someone actually clicks on your ad. So not only is that person going to Google, searching for the product that you sell, seeing your ad, seeing the price point and the image, and then clicking on it, which means they're much more qualified before they even land on your page and before you even get billed from Google, right? Because Google, you get charged per click, which is why it's also called pay per click advertising, or PPC. So in many ways, it's much more straightforward than on Meta, because you don't have to worry about image creatives, video creatives, tons of testing. Instead, you just put your ads in front of people that are already looking for them, and then Google only charges you when that person actually clicks on the ad anyway. So that also means my team is extremely simple, okay? I manage the Google ads myself. In truth, I probably check them for about 1 hour every 7 days. Like I said, I was actually in the account this morning because I was looking at the profit and loss, and I noticed there was probably a bit more opportunity to scale as we head into the second part of the month. So that just means me sitting down with a coffee, going through the campaigns, and then making some optimizations, changing budgets, changing bidding strategies and stuff like that. Google ads is actually extremely straightforward when you know what you're doing. So because we have me up here as the business owner managing essentially the ads and overseeing, I guess, the operations, if you like, I then have 2 team members that work alongside me. First and foremost is my virtual assistant. Now, as you saw on my Shopify screenshot earlier, I've only had 244 orders with this store, and that allowed me to generate over $92,000 in sales. So as you can imagine, we don't really have many customer inquiries. We maybe get 2 or 3 emails per day, which means my VA doesn't really have a lot to do. She updates my profit and loss on a daily basis. She also handles just some other tasks around the store and things like that. But typically she's in the emails for 15-20 minutes. She answers a few emails and then she bounces. It's not like low ticket dropshipping where you're selling $20, $30, $40 products, which means you need to get thousands of orders to do $100,000 in revenue. Not to mention the amount of customer support, chargebacks, all of this kind of stuff that you have on the back end. I mean, that's another thing. Let's touch on chargebacks. Of those 244 orders, I've only ever had 1 chargeback, and that was actually from a customer trying to scam me. They said that they hadn't received the product, even though they had. They then opened a case with PayPal. I submitted all of the documentation with PayPal to show it was dispatched, it was delivered, proof of tracking codes, images. Then only after PayPal sided with me, the customer then decided to say, oh, I was wrong. I found the product. My neighbor had taken it in 2 weeks ago before they went on holiday, blah, blah, blah. They then proceeded to request to return the product after that, which of course I allowed them to do because the product was unopened, even though they tried to scam me. But hey, you know, we have return policies in place and we have to respect if someone wants to return an unopened product, they can do that. But not bad, right? 244 orders, only 1 chargeback, and it was from a customer that was trying to scam me. So as you can imagine, there's not really much for my virtual assistant to do. What I do is I put her in a WhatsApp group chat with my private agent. Now, for those of you that don't know, a private agent is just your eyes and ears on the ground in China. It's not really James Bond or anything like that, but they are a very valuable asset and they're a team member which forms part of your business. You know, they have a really important role because their role is sourcing products, negotiating with suppliers, handling all of your fulfillment, providing the tracking codes and importing them into Shopify, and essentially just overseeing fulfillment. So all I do is I put my virtual assistant in a group chat with my private agent. I allow them to communicate, and I just oversee the messages to make sure that everything's being handled correctly. And that really is it. That's my team structure. It looks basic, and that's because it is. It really doesn't need to be more complicated than that. There's a military saying, it's called KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Just keep everything simple. There's no need for tons and tons of team members here. We're not doing any creative testing. Actually, the structure and the setup is extremely straightforward, and that's the way I intend to keep it. So now I've walked you through my profit and loss and also my team structure, which is super simple and straightforward. Let's get on to a store update. So let me tell you what's been going on behind the scenes. Now, I do have an exciting announcement. In about 2 weeks' time, so the end of September, I should be receiving my first batch of fully customized branded stock, which means I have a custom product, I have my logo on the product, and it is fully branded and customized. So that should be with me just in time for Q4, which is going to be really exciting. So we'll then have the custom branded product and also branded packaging. Our goal here is, of course, to give customers a unique and branded experience. Now, as I always say, the riches are in the niches, and that's why I always become an authority within a niche just being a category or subcategory of products. By becoming an authority, you can demand a premium price point. Think about big brands, okay? Louis Vuitton, Dyson. Let's take the Airwrap, for example. Do you think that hair product, you know, the one they use to like curl their hair, straighten their hair and whatever else, is really worth, I think it's like 400, 500 bucks? Of course not. It's just plastic and an electrical cable. It costs them next to nothing to produce. So you can imagine what their margins might be on that product. Well, we're doing the same thing here with branded dropshipping, okay? We just sell high ticket products within a niche. We become an authority within that niche, a bit like Dyson is in hair or Louis Vuitton is in clothing, and then we demand a premium price point, because as an authority, you get to decide what your products are worth. Obviously, we are going to monitor as well what's going on in the market with our competition and stuff like that, but you know, at the end of the day, we get to demand what our product is worth, provided that customers are willing to pay that. So why did I invest in branded stock? Well, one reason is for brand IP. Okay, I want to differentiate myself from all of the other dropshippers out there, and I want to build a moat around my business. Okay, I want to separate myself from everyone else, which means building a moat around the business. Why do I want to do that? Well, because it provides more security, okay? It stops anyone just going to a supplier in China and getting a product off the shelf, because these suppliers in China, they don't have any brand loyalty, okay? They may sell 100, 200, 500 pieces of a particular product to you, and say someone else comes along, you know, dropshipper number B, and they want access to that product and they've found the supplier that produces it, then that supplier is of course going to give it to them. At the end of the day, they're a business. They want to make as much revenue as profit as possible. But by customizing and branding our products, we then create brand IP and we turn our business into even more of a sellable asset, because it's more interesting to prospective buyers, because not anyone can get this product off the shelf in China, which means the valuation of our brand has just gone up just by simply branding the products. Not only that, but the perceived value to the end customer has increased. Now, think about this. If all of our customers then start receiving branded products, what a fantastic opportunity for us to then get user-generated content. We can create a referral program, an affiliate program. We can maybe even leverage things like TikTok Shop. Now, this is something that I need to look into more. I've never actually used TikTok Shop, but as I understand, they're trying to compete with Amazon. Therefore, a requirement of TikTok Shop is that you have to hold stock in the country in which you're selling in, which is, of course, the United States. If I were to do that, which I don't do currently, I'm currently dropshipping from China. So these are all things that I would need to figure out. However, it doesn't stop me sending the product out to influencers and collaborators and getting back image and video based creatives. Now, as I was saying to you guys earlier, I'm a big advocate of Google Ads dropshipping. Now, that's not to say I won't ever add on meta ads, but right now, to get to 100k per month, I simply do not need to, okay? Meta ads would be introduced when I do get back some UGC, which is user generated content, so images and videos of customers using the product, and then I would put that in the top of the funnel, or maybe even remarketing as well on Meta to then attract more people and introduce more people to the brand. Because if you think about a funnel, we have a sales funnel here. Now, at the bottom of the funnel, these are the people that are ready to convert, okay? And that is the benefit you have of targeting traffic on Google, because people go here, they go to Google when they're ready to buy, okay? They're searching for product X that we already sell. So we're simply able to just convert this traffic at the bottom of the funnel very easily. Like I mentioned, we just put our products in front of people who are already looking for them. Now, the only downside to that is you could, of course, have a cap on how many people are already searching for your product on a monthly basis. It's called TAM, okay? okay? Total addressable market. Eventually, you're going to have maximized the amount of revenue that you can achieve for that bottom of funnel traffic. And to get around that, we just simply scale. And there's two different types of scale. There's horizontal scale and there's vertical scale. And let me walk you through the differences. So horizontal scale is, of course, on a horizontal axis. Now, that is scaling horizontally. So that means adding on more products and more markets. When I say markets, I simply mean different locations. So you may then advertise in the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, Europe. That's an example of horizontal scale. You're taking a product that's already proven to convert in one market and simply launching it in another. So even if you reach total addressable market in, say, the United States, you can then add on another location and begin advertising there because you're exposing yourself to more search demand. An example of vertical scale is, of course, increasing your advertising spend. So vertical scale will, of course, look like this on a vertical axis, and you increase your advertising spend. So as you can imagine, as you add on more markets and more locations, let's say US, UK, Canada, you add on horizontal scale, which means you're selling your product in multiple markets, and at the same time, you also scale the advertising spend. So now you've got horizontal and vertical scale, which means you can make more money because you're selling to the bottom of the funnel in multiple markets. Now, even still, you might say, well, eventually you will then reach total addressable market in all of these locations. And that's when you start adding on additional products. You know, why limit yourself to just 1, 2, or 3 products? You can add on 4 or 5. Right now, I have 2 products on my store, and I'm about to add on a cross-sell product, which I'll talk on in just a moment, and also a third standalone product, which I hope to get live by the end of this month, just in time for Q4. I've been a little busy, to be honest. I've had family visiting me at the moment. My mum is actually staying with me right now, which has been really cool, and she actually just tested one of my products for me. Her feedback was really, really good, which is really great to hear. We've been doing well anyway. We've been getting lots of really positive customer responses through Trustpilot, and we're slowly building that brand authority more and more. But to actually have direct feedback from my mum, who isn't necessarily even my target demographic, who really, really liked the product and promised me she was being unbiased, is really, really great to hear. But getting back to what I was saying, we have 2 types of scale, horizontal and vertical, and it really is that simple. You just keep adding on more products and more markets, and you scale horizontally and vertically. Now, why did I mention meta ads? Well, if we go back to our sales funnel here, we have bottom of funnel, we have middle of funnel, and then you have top of funnel. Now, top of funnel is fantastic for meta ads. Okay, because you're showing ads to people who you believe to be interested in your product. But personally, I don't believe this is the best place to start. I like to add it on later. If you look at that sales funnel, why would I want to start here where people are coldest? Okay, when I can start here at the bottom of funnel when people are warmest. Here you have a lower conversion rate, okay, and down here you have a higher conversion rate. When I say conversion rate, I just mean the rate in which people convert on your website, okay? You're going to have a much higher conversion rate and build a much better foundation, which is why I have such a high profit margin, because I just sell to people who are already looking for the products that I sell. It's very straightforward, really. So I always start at the bottom of the funnel, reach total addressable market in multiple markets with multiple products, and then I work my way back up, which for me just makes the most sense, and it's the exact same strategy that I teach to all of my students. I told you guys at the start of this video I would be sharing with you my Q4 scaling strategy, and honestly, that is it. Like, my team is extremely simple, my scaling strategy is extremely simple. As I mentioned, guys, KISS, okay? Keep it simple, stupid. It doesn't need to be overly complex. There's guys out here on Meta testing 10, 15, 20 different creatives every single day or every single week. It's excessive and also expensive, because every time you do a test, you have to put ad spend up against it. You've also got to pay your creative guy or whoever's making the assets for you, or maybe you're doing it yourself, which means you're not only investing money, but also your time into building the business, all for what? 10-15% net profit margin, because you're targeting traffic that's top of the funnel and cold? This doesn't make any sense to me. I always prefer start with Google ads, target bottom of funnel traffic, and work your way up. So that is my scaling strategy. I'm going to add on a couple more products before the end of Q3, and so we're in a comfortable position as we scale into Q4. I also mentioned to you earlier, I'd been in my Google ad account earlier. I was tweaking some budgets, increasing advertising spend in places, and I'm pushing this month for $40,000 to $50,000 in revenue. At the end of the month, I will then review my profit, because remember, this is exactly why we do it. Where were the inefficiencies? Where can I optimize to improve my overall profit as we then scale into Q4? I actually have a call with my private agent in just under 1 hour, so I'm going to need to wrap this YouTube video up in just a moment. But right now, on my store, I have 2 products, okay? One AOV is $400, the other is around $500. I have custom stock arriving at the end of September for one of the products. I'm going to also need to place another order when that stock arrives arrives just based on order volume and sales volume increasing as we head into Q4. So I want to make sure that I don't, of course, run out of stock. That would be very bad. So I want to make sure I have more than what I potentially need. So as that stock arrives at the end of September, we will then place another order for the next batch of stock, which will typically take sort of 30 to 40 days to be produced. I also need to finalize a stock order with my private agent and the supplier for the cross-sell product that I mentioned earlier. That was also what my mum was testing earlier. So I have 2 products at the moment. One of them I'm going to be introducing a cross-sell product for as well. I'm going to sell for $80 a single product and see how it goes. But I'm also going to add a bundling option and offer where if people buy 2, they get a third free. So I just need to review the final samples with that and get the order placed. Then we'll have 2 products and one with a cross-sell. And then we're also going to be adding a third product as well. Hopefully I can get it done by the end of this month. I've just been a little bit busy. Like I said, I've got family visiting at the moment. I've got some more family visiting next week. I've also been busy with my mentorship program, creating these YouTube videos for you guys. So, this store isn't the sort of thing where I'm like in the trenches all day long every day, but still you can see the amount of profit that it makes me on the back end. So, I probably should spend a bit more time actually growing and scaling it. But I'm confident with everything that I'm doing that we will hit that nice round 6-figure mark per month throughout Q4, even just with this introduction of new products and of course scaling my ad spend vertically. And it really is that simple, guys. So we've been through my profit and loss. I've also shared with you my team structure, which is super simple, and also gone through my store updates so you guys know what I've been up to, and then of course my scaling strategy for Q4. And that pretty much kind of wraps it up for this video. But for those of you that have been watching and have found value in the things that I've shared, and how it's different, we focus on Google Ads dropshipping, we build high ticket stores, we become an authority within a niche. It's very different to the typical norm of just meta ads dropshipping, doing, fashion, home decor, whatever else. Our approach is very different here, and it's why my students have an incredibly high success rate. It's not just me achieving these profit margins. I have tons of case studies and testimonials of students who have done even bigger numbers than myself and in less time as well. In fact, let me share some with you right now. So you can see to date inside of my mentorship program, the Google Ads Ecom Academy, we've had 25 reviews, of which all of them have been 5-star. There's not one person or one student who's been through the academy and has ever rated their experience anything less than 5-star, which I'm extremely proud of. And as I mentioned, I've worked with each and every single one of these students on a one-to-one basis, so I can tell you a little bit about each of them. Even if we just read through a few of these, Theo saved me years of time and losses, second to none service with quick replies, problem solving, and filling you with confidence. Moving forward with the knowledge and skills I have, I can start generating some sales. You can see Mike's only 5 weeks in. He's actually just getting to the point now where he's about to launch his ads. We've then got Matt, and he said this is the best dropshipping e-com mentorship he's joined. He's been part of other e-commerce communities, by the way, and coaching programs, which he never found success. As he mentioned here, complete waste of time, lost a lot of money. But here inside of the academy, he's talking about the things that stood out. It's way more beginner friendly. We provide templates. You've got people around you pushing for the same goal. It's structured, it's honest, and it works. We've then got Dan talking about the mentorship, saying it's mentorship that delivers. We've got Dustin saying that working with Theo has been a game changer. He said we were basically flying blind. Theo was able to help us develop systems that allowed us to directly allocate our revenue to campaigns. We've got Prego, who's 18-year-old student from Korea. Just 6 weeks ago, he was a complete beginner. That he launched a new e-commerce business, Google Ads dropshipping, and within 6 weeks he started generating sales. We have Fabian. He was actually an online coach and video editor 4 months ago, or when he joined it anyway, and within 4 months he went from 0 to 70,000 euros in sales per month. That is, by the way. I actually filmed a podcast with him when I was visiting Bali. Here you go. We built a 70,000 euro per month dropshipping business in just 4 months. Who else have we got? Alexander. He said it's great so far. Demi said imagine gaining 5 years of knowledge in 3 weeks. Theo genuinely over delivered. It's like having someone in your corner who's done it before. Oliver, super knowledge and proactive. He actually joined the academy with a successful business already. He already had a branded store. He was just doing meta ads though, generating about 170k per month. Within 3 months of working together, I scaled him to £350,000 per month. We simply added on Google Ads as a channel and then introduced his product into multiple markets. Pretty much doubled his revenue in 3 months. He's in his early 20s and he now drives a Porsche 911. So Ollie's absolutely crushing it. Kyle, he had 2 failed dropshipping stores prior to joining the academy. His words, not mine. And within 1 month of joining, I helped him generate at least $1,000 per day from his dropshipping store. Osman, we've got Mark, we've got Noah, Hassan, we've got Sasha. He was another fantastic case study. He actually flew out to Dubai and we filmed a podcast together. It was actually a little while ago now, so let me see if I can find it real quick. Sasha is, where is he? Right here. How I made 500,000, or actually 513,429 euros dropshipping one product in just 4 months. So as you can see, guys, the results go on and on and on. I've never had a negative review inside of the academy because I work with everyone on a one-to-one basis. What I often say to people when they join is it's a financial investment for you, but it's a time and energy investment for me. And that is why I believe that my students have such a high success rate, because I'm personally invested in their success. So that's the academy. I've shown you some student results and kind of what other people are saying. If you're interested in joining, if you want a complete A to Z on how to build a successful branded niche specific high ticket dropshipping store, and if you want to go from zero to at least $10,000 in sales in the next 90 days or less, even if you're a complete beginner, then see the link in the video description for more information. That is all for this video. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch it. If you found it valuable, please make sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe and drop a comment. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video.